Magnus Ditlev has burst onto the long course triathlon scene. Winner at Challenge Roth and runner-up at the PTO US Open. We spoke to him ahead of his exciting debut at the Ironman World Championships here in Kona. We're sitting with Magnus Ditlev today and we're going to discuss his rapid trajectory, the winner of Challenge Roth, second place at the PTO US Open in Dallas just a few weeks ago, and coming into his first Kona as something of a favourite somehow at the tender age of 24. Welcome, Magnus. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
We are going to discuss, everything. I was running through your resume as a professional athlete, and it's pretty short, which is not really surprising because you're only 24 years old. 25 at the end of this month?
Yeah, 25 and 31st of October, so yeah.
Yeah, so nearly 25. You basically skipped short course racing entirely. A reason for that was just not interested, or you just didn't find triathlon until later?
No, I actually would love to have started with racing short course, but it was more because I got into the sport so late and with no background in swimming, biking or running. So when I started doing triathlon, my level simply wasn't good enough to even be considering it.
Yeah, for draft legal racing, you're just not going to be in the mix.
Yeah.
Well, you've certainly taken to long course racing pretty rapidly. Was this always the goal? Was it just like straight into 70.3 and as soon as possible I'm going to do Ironman, or was that a difficult decision? Do I stick with 70.3 for 5 or 6 years and then move up?
So it was actually quite something we have been talking to my coach and I back and forth, not wanting to do an Ironman too early, but from the training I did, we could see that there maybe was quite a big potential, maybe even more on the full distance than half distance. So we just said, okay, now we will do Ironman Texas in the beginning of this year and sort of before the real 70.3 and middle distance season starts, see how it goes, and if it goes well, then we'll see what opportunities there are. And so it was really just to try it out at the beginning of the year, and then things
that did go well because he came second to Ben Hoffman, who's been second here before. So yeah, that went well. And then was it straight like, okay, the rest of the year is around Kona, or was it still capitalize on the PTO races?
Yeah, so I think from Texas we actually, on the plane back home, my coach and I maybe got a bit carried away. But we started making, we had no Wi-Fi, and so we started writing down things on a piece of paper that I had to make sure was in order before, in order to be able to win Kona. And then once I got home from Texas, I just started ticking off all those things. And then there came the start list for Roth was announced, and I saw that basically all the 3 top Germans were racing, and I felt, okay, I really love to race against the best guys in the world, and also thought that Jaune it would be a good opportunity to race against him, and you never know if something happens with him or anything. So I just signed up for that because I wanted to race against
To measure yourself.
Yeah, to measure myself and see, because I believed I had a chance, but I also knew it would be extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And then again, that went
pretty well.
Well.
That's putting it mildly. Went pretty well. He outsplit Jan Frodeno on the bike. Jan Frodeno then succumbed to an Achilles injury on the run, and Magnus went to run off and take the win. And then obviously the belief starts creeping in that Kona is very much on the cards. Kona is a different kettle of fish though, and you decided to do PTO Dallas on the way here. Silly hot race. But you seem to handle it pretty well, particularly for a bigger guy.
Yeah, so actually it was something we started already before Texas with the heat prep and cooling strategies, and it was not it was on purpose that we chose to race Ironman Texas because it's not as hot and humid as here, but it's one of the races that gets close to Kona. So we also wanted to see in Texas if it was even possible to race in Kona and be competitive. So we actually already started doing the heat prep and sauna training and all those things back then.
So what does that look like, the heat prep? Are you training in a sauna? Are you sleeping in a sauna? What are you doing to get ready for something like this when you come from Denmark?
So leading into it has been developed. Like the first thing we did going into Texas was entirely sauna training, which was a protocol of 4 times a week, building it up to sitting in the sauna for 40 minutes straight, which by the end of the 40 minutes, your heart rate is almost 130, which is when I push, like if I push 300 watts, then it's the equivalent to that. So the heart rate just keeps rising and rising in the sauna. And in Texas, I felt that really worked well. And then afterwards, we started working a little bit more closely with some experts in the Danish, it's called Team Denmark, where they have a lot of experts in heat training and nutrition and all those sort of things. So we refined it a little bit. So going into Kona, it has also been some more active heat training, like sitting on a turbo trainer with the rain jackets on and stuff like that. That's really nasty.
Yeah, that sounds nasty. I would rather you than me. So you're now in Kona. Coming in as something of a favorite, even though you're only 24 years old and it's your first Kona. But we're in a bit of a strange Kona this year because it's been 3 years since we had Kona, and a lot of the favorites are Kona novices. How has your first impressions of Kona been? What are your first impressions riding? You've been out in the Queen K, you've been running through the Energy Lab. Is it the same as the pictures you saw on TV, or is it, what are your first impressions?
Yeah, so I went, raced in Dallas and then went directly here. So the first day I was maybe a little bit cooked because of the race and also the time shift again. So I was a bit tired the first few days, and we spent the time just getting to know the course. And I think it's like tougher than I had expected, and what especially the bike course is much harder, like rolling terrain all the time than what maybe you can see from the videos and footage of the race. So that, I think that should suit me. And then if the wind really blows, then it can be extremely tough going back, for instance, if you had a headwind all the way back. So
are these good things or bad things for Magnus Ditlev, the harder course and the wind?
I think it's a good thing for me, but of course it will slow down the overall times, but we're not racing for a fast time, we're racing for placements. So I think the harder the better for me.
Same with the run, the harder the better for you in the Energy Lab? How bad
I like
is it?
more like flat run, I think, but I don't think it's just my personal preference. I don't think it affects my run too much if it's a hilly one or not, but it's just like easy for me to control all the things.
Sounds like you've ticked a lot of the boxes. So and you've been here for a while now, so you know it. Now moved up the hill to get a bit of a break from
altitude.
Well, I wouldn't call it altitude, but at least you're away from the madding crowd down at the bottom there, and focusing on the final prep for the race. I imagine a lot of it now is thinking about the race itself and how it's going to pan out. How would your ideal day pan out? Will you be Magnus Ditlev goes off the front on the bike and puts 10 minutes into everyone and breaks the course record on the bike and then hangs on the run, or is your plan to stay with the group and see what happens?
I think with Kona it's important not to have a fixed plan and be very adaptable, because you really don't know what, like, so many things can happen. But of course, I will try to use the bike to do some damage. That's for sure. Hopefully, I have a swim where I'm in the big second group. That would be fine. Maybe I believe Gustav will be there also, and Patrick also. Maybe then there is a group up front, potentially with all the strong swimmers, but they also have quite a bit of firepower on the bike. So. And then there will probably be a difficult situation for me if I want to ride away from that group, because I don't necessarily want to bring Patrick and Gustav along, for instance, and that can be extremely difficult to get rid of, especially Gustav, as he's such a good bike rider also. And then hopefully catch the front group before the turnaround point would be nice.
That would be nice, yeah.
Then do some damage on the way back, but it's not like for instance, in Roth, I was in T2 with Jaune, and I wasn't like too concerned about that, because I knew, okay, if I do what I know I'm capable of, then I can run pretty much a 2:40 marathon. And so it's not that I would stress if we enter T2 in a big group, but it's clear that for guys like Patrick, I would love to have some time on him in T2. But then again, I think my run so far has been quite stable also in Ironman, more stable than in middle and 70.3 distances at least.
Well, we sort of heard a few times there you said do some damage on the bike. I think everyone's looking forward to seeing Magnus Ditlev do some damage on the bike. We're certainly rooting for you to do some damage on the bike, even if it's just for our own entertainment purposes. But do hope that you back that up with a solid run and can have a successful debut at Kona. I think regardless of what happens here, we can all be pretty certain that Magnus Ditlev is a name you're going to hear quite a few times for quite a few years in the future of Kona. I think you've got a big future here and at other races. Clearly, you've burst onto the scene in the last year with quite some impressive feats, and we look forward to seeing another one of those hopefully on Kona. Thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best from us at GTN, and we'll definitely be out there supporting you on race day.
Thanks for having me.